15 years ago, a new group of antidepressants was launched. Unlike those which had gone before, SSRIs, as they're known, were said to be free of side effects. Doctors now prescribe these so-called happy pills like Prozac and Seroxat 28 million times a year. They make many people better, but not everyone is smiling. This year, the UK banned all SSRIs, apart from Prozac, for young people with depression because of increased suicide risks. Thousands of patients say their lives have been ruined.
I was unable to eat. I lost probably a stone and a half in weight. Couldn't sleep. I had anxiety that I couldn't even describe.
I would like to see severe restrictions put on the use of these drugs. They're very addictive, they make people extremely ill, and they're very difficult to come off.
I do believe that he gave drugs far too quickly and without explaining the consequences of what he was giving her.
Tonight, West Eye View conducts a hidden camera investigation to find out if doctors in the West prescribe too readily pills that could be potentially dangerous to people who don't need them at all.
I've never experienced depression or any problem since, which just confirms what I thought all along. And that was that I didn't need them. I probably didn't need them in the first place, to be honest. There might have been other therapeutic ways of dealing with the depression I was feeling. But I certainly didn't need to be on them for as long as I was.
Sophie, a Bristol lawyer, is one of thousands of people seeking compensation from GlaxoSmithKline, the maker of Seroxat, claiming the drug did them more harm than good. In her early 20s, Sophie felt depressed after an attempt at living abroad went wrong, so she made an appointment with her GP.
The doctor didn't really give me any options, to be honest, just automatically said, well, there's some new antidepressants that have come on the market that I think would be very good for you. Seroxat, no side effects, etc. Here you are, here's a prescription. I think you'll probably only need to take them for a few months and they'll get you back up to normal.
Sure enough, within a few months, Sophie did feel normal again, so stopped taking the drug.
I literally just one day didn't take a tablet. Probably about 3 or 4 days after, felt incredibly physically unwell and terribly, terribly anxious and low, far more so than I'd felt initially before I was prescribed them. Went back to the doctor and said, this is what I'm feeling, this is what's happening, what do you suggest? And the doctor said, well, you obviously haven't been taking them for long enough. This is your original symptoms coming out since you stopped taking them. So I again took the doctor's advice and went back to taking them for a further 6 months or so. And the pattern was set from then on. Every time I would try to stop taking them, after a few days I would start feeling so unwell to the extent that I literally couldn't go to college, couldn't work, couldn't see people, couldn't do anything.
Seroxat's patient information leaflet used to claim the drug was not addictive, but last year it amended that advice, admitting 25% of people coming off the drug might experience withdrawal symptoms.
I think had there been a warning on the leaflet when I was prescribed them, I would have thought long and hard about actually taking that first tablet and probably wouldn't have taken them. I think it was very irresponsible of the drug companies not to have put them on at the time of releasing the drug.
Sophie asked her GP to switch her to another antidepressant, one from which she could withdraw without side effects.
I transferred onto the Lustral with no obvious problems whatsoever and continued with the Lustral. After a few months thought, well, it's about time that I stop taking these and hopefully I won't have experience the same problems as I did with the Seroxat. And lo and behold, I had the exact same symptoms, exact same problems. I'd never experienced suicidal feelings before I was prescribed the tablets at the outset. When I was feeling low, I certainly wasn't suicidal and had never experienced those before.
Lustral is made by the firm Pfizer, which markets it in the United States as Zoloft. Later this year, the company will be taken to court in America over the case of Matt Miller, a 13-year-old who killed himself while taking the drug. His parents allege it was responsible, a charge denied by Pfizer, which also refutes any link between the drug and suicide or self-harm. Last year, however, the UK banned the prescription for under-18s of Lustral and all other SSRIs bar one, Prozac, because of evidence of a suicide risk in children. A clinical pharmacologist who's taught GPs about drug safety says the ban followed new information from drug companies' own testing data.
The disclosure that we've had in the past year that there have been a lot more trials than were actually published, and that these findings were secret, that the drug companies had kept them back, that really means that the benefits of the drug have been overstated because they've only published the best trials. They've also not disclosed the harms that were found in the studies that were done. And so the net effect is that the benefits have been overstated and the harms have been understated or concealed.
Last month, the European Union forced the maker of Seroxat to warn of an increased suicide risk among the under-30s. The Department of Health has collated reports of fatalities linked to SSRIs. Each one of these drugs has been associated with deaths. A charity that monitors these reports doesn't believe the drugs pose dangers only to the young.
No, these risks don't just disappear on your 18th birthday. There is a detectable increased risk also for young adults. That's to say, for people in the 19 to 29-year-old group. But again, to my mind, it would be silly to think that on your 29th birthday all of these problems disappear.
Bristol MP Doug Naismith is a member of the Health Select Committee. He's one of a number of MPs worried about the increase in the use of the SSRI group of antidepressants.
The question has been asked now for the last 6 or 7 years, and asking the Department of Health about the number of prescriptions which are issued for SSRIs. And there has been a remarkable increase. It's gone up from about roughly 15 million prescriptions then to about 28 now. That's almost a doubling in 6 or 7 years, and that's quite a remarkable increase.
This autumn, the committee will begin an inquiry into how the drug industry influences health policy.
What we are about to do is to do a study into the pharmaceutical industry and the research it does and the effect it has on the National Health Service and the efficacy of some of the drugs that they produce and the way they market them to medical professionals. And I know for a fact that one of the areas we're certainly going to look at is the use of SSRIs, which are fairly controversial.
So why are so many SSRIs still being prescribed, in spite of the evidence that they can cause serious harm? And does doctor know best when it comes to dispensing antidepressants? After 12 appointments with GPs in the West, our research suggests they don't. After the break. Last year, 140,000 prescriptions for SSRI antidepressants were given to young people, 3 times the number dispensed a decade earlier. Prescriptions of the drugs for children under 16 almost doubled in that period, although, apart from Prozac, they've since been banned. Before the ban came in, Melissa Edwards was prescribed Seroxat. Melissa, who was born deaf, lives in Dorset with her mother and brother. She was still learning to cope with her disability when she was referred to a psychiatrist because of panic attacks.
It wasn't nice. It wasn't nice at all, it was just horrible. I had panic attacks since I was 12.
Melissa was 13 when she began taking Seroxat. A few months after starting on the drug, things took a turn for the worse.
She initially calmed down on the antidepressants that she was put on, but every time the effect wasn't as good, she started to get more and more worried. The psychiatrist would give her more and more of the drug to achieve the same effect, but the side effect was she was becoming more and more miserable. to a point where she'd upped her dose from 5 milligrams to 30 milligrams, and she'd begun to cut herself. She told me on numerous occasions that there was this battle going on in her head. One side of her brain was saying, go and cut yourself, and the other side was trying to be rational and saying, don't, that's stupid. But there were times when it took over, and she just had to do it just to stop it from building up inside.
For 3 years, Melissa lost her friends and stopped going out. She also missed a year of school. However, when the family moved house, her new GP offered her counselling.
He identified that Melissa needed a lot of help to get herself back on track, and he sent her for psychiatric counselling. The psychiatric nurse involved the help of the school and Melissa's advisory teacher for the deaf, and between them they've all helped Melissa get back on track. I think that if she'd had the counselling help at 13 that she had when she was 15 and a half, she would be a different person now. She wouldn't have had to have gone through that 3 years of limbo.
Now I've stopped taking drugs like that, and I'm having less panic attacks, and now I am enjoying my life again, even though I missed my teenage years, well, most of them. Now I'm back. I love going out. One day I hope to be a famous actress, one of my dreams. I love meeting new people, helping people, and I'm just loving my teenage years at last.
Melissa now takes a very low dose of another SSRI drug, citalopram. She's not self-harmed since coming off Seroxat and sees her counsellor only when necessary.
The psychiatric nurse, when I told her my problem, and she understood what I was going through, because I think she'd done a few people before I went in to ask her to help me, and we spent a long time doing activities and my breathing exercises, what I do a lot now. And she's helped me turn right around, and I just love her to pieces. She's my guardian angel.
The Bristol Tranquilizer Project runs a helpline for people involuntarily addicted to pills, many of them having trouble coming off SSRIs. Over a 4-week period, callers were asked about their experience of taking the drugs.
I think the most surprising thing about the survey was the number of people who were having suicidal thoughts, who felt they were going mad, who felt absolutely desperate. I mean, we were aware that these drugs do cause these side effects and withdrawal symptoms, but it was the fact that 2/3 of the people who phoned in admitted that they were having suicidal thoughts and were going absolutely to the edge on these drugs. I think that surprised us very much. We were also surprised by the number of people who were considering self-harming or harming other people. That was about 1/3 of the people who phoned us during that month. And that was a very high number again. We weren't aware that those numbers were involved.
I've no doubt that in some cases it is undoubtedly due to the drug itself. Rapid changes in the concentration of drug in the body, that's to say a dosage increase or a rapid decrease that would come with withdrawal, can precipitate suicidal thinking and feelings of intense restlessness and nervousness that are associated with the onset of suicidality.
The Bristol Tranquilizer Project considers that many of the people it speaks to on a daily basis are put on SSRI drugs unnecessarily.
It doesn't seem to us that many of these people are actually suffering from depression, at least not severe depression. They may be suffering from a very mild depression, but more often they're having life crises, they're in an emotional state, they're anxious, they may be panicking. But no, it doesn't seem to us to be classic depression at all, only in a very, very small minority of cases. And therefore, we don't feel these drugs are at all appropriate for the vast majority of the people that we're seeing here.
In the face of criticism that doctors prescribe pills too readily, we asked the Royal College of GPs how aware their members are of the possible side effects.
I think GPs are very conscious of both the beneficial and the adverse effects of antidepressants, and we certainly recognise they're not a panacea. They're not a cure for all ills. They do have a very specific helpful role in certain areas of treatment. But we are limited by our access particularly to talking therapies. We do not have particularly good access in the UK to psychology or counselling-based services. And if we had better access, then it is likely that our usage of antidepressants might be altered.
In April, a survey suggested that GPs were giving out SSRI antidepressants too readily. 89% of doctors surveyed in this region admitted overprescribing them. We wanted to find out if doctors would prescribe SSRIs, drugs with potentially harmful side effects, to people claiming mild depression. Doctors were picked randomly in the Bristol and Bath areas. The doctors had never previously met their patients. Our researchers were aged between 18 and 29, a group thought to be at a higher risk of becoming suicidal on SSRIs. This consultation with Adam, a 22-year-old student, was secretly recorded.
It's about my mood and sort of well-being at the moment. I'm sort of feeling just low and stuff, and I can't seem to pick myself up at all.
Our researchers told the same story to the 12 doctors, claiming they were feeling low, hopeless, losing sleep and not getting pleasure out of socialising with friends.
Sort of progressively in the past sort of year, but in the more recent weeks it's been getting a little worse. I've been losing sleep over it, that kind of thing.
Okay. What do you think might be causing it?
I've no idea at the moment, to be honest with you. I just feel a bit hopeless. I mean, with my course and stuff, I'm not feeling like it's the right thing for me to do and that, and I just getting all in a worry about it and can't seem to pick myself up. I'm not. Yeah.
All 12 GPs told the researchers about counselling services. However, 7 of them also offered a prescription for an SSRI antidepressant.
Right, okay, so definitely you've got lots of symptoms there for depression. What kind of line were you thinking of following on it? I mean, from our point of view, we can refer you to counsellors, give you the numbers for counselling services, but from our point of view, treatment is about treating this medically with antidepressants. How does that sound?
What? I mean, I don't know. I've not been in this situation before, you see, so
Sure.
I'm not really sure which route to take at all.
Certainly the symptoms that you've described, that sounds definitely like it would benefit from medication. First of all, they're not addictive. It's not like the old-style sleeping tablets and things like that that people got stuck on. I think it'd be worthwhile trying you on some medication, and hopefully you won't get any problems with the tablets. They tend to cause very, very few side effects.
Dr. Andrew Herxheimer teaches GPs about the physical and psychological effects of medicines. We showed him our tape. He was critical of the GP who gave Adam the SSRI prescription, since only 4 symptoms of depression were mentioned.
I was rather surprised that he was prescribed an antidepressant. I did get the feeling that it was rather mild depression, and that it would have been wise to wait and see, and to get to know the person a bit more before giving him an antidepressant.
We asked the Royal College of GPs to explain what would constitute good practice when a GP first saw a patient who claimed to have mild depression.
GPs are very aware of the responsibilities that come with having a prescription pad, and they are only too aware that that prescription can do harm as well as good. And we're always trying to balance the amount of good we can do versus the potential for any harm or any adverse effects. Profound classic depression is relatively easy and straightforward for a clinician to diagnose. What is much more difficult is that hazy area where the blues or the normal kind of slings and arrows of life blend into a mild depression. Sometimes people walk in the door of which we have no knowledge, and in most of those cases we would not prescribe on the first occasion. We're also very aware, though, of the limitations we have in getting access to other forms of treatment. And I think GPs certainly feel that we're sometimes forced into using these antidepressants when they're not necessarily our first choice.
A 2-year official review into the safety of SSRIs will be published this autumn. Campaigners expect a warning that SSRIs can cause adults as well as children to feel suicidal.
What you're going to end up with is a set of recommendations which will be translated into the small print instructions. What you're not going to get is any sort of investigation into the role of the regulators in creating this crisis. And it was a major role, and it is a considerable crisis, a crisis that could have been avoided. They had conducted perhaps 6 investigations right back from the early 1990s. And in the light of what they've now reported, it's fair to say that those investigations were inadequate. So I'm expecting a report which makes unexceptional, sensible recommendations, too little, too late, and not nearly enough.
That claim is denied by the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, which says its latest review of SSRIs will be published soon.
I would like to see severe restrictions put on the use of these drugs. They're very addictive, they make people extremely ill, and they're very difficult to come off. And the effects go on for months and months after people have even come off the drugs. So I would like to see that all put in an advice notice to doctors. So these drugs are only given in a very limited number of cases and for a very limited period.
I wish that I could have my teenage years, because I missed nearly 3 years. But I just wish I can be like everybody else. You know, have a normal teenage life and picking on my brother. But yeah, I just wish I had a normal life, really. Yeah, normal life.
For information about SSRI helplines in your area, call Sane Line on 0845 767 8000. Britain has the highest teenage birth rate in Western Europe. West Eye View visits a school for young mums to find out why our teenagers are so bad at heeding sex advice.